Welcome back to the conversation. I'm being joined by Mr. Daniel Bwala. We'll be taking a look at President Tinubu's presidency and state of the nation. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.
How's it been? You've been in court. I mean, I saw you the other day at the presidential tribunal.
Yeah.
How's that going?
So far, so good. Everything is going fine. The trial proceedings are going on seamlessly, and we are happy with the way we are adducing our case, and we look forward to the future.
Okay, I don't want to get into the meat of the matter because it's for the courts to, for the adumbration and all of the argument to be happening in the courtroom, and when that happens, we might discuss the outcome thereafter.
That's right.
I mean, President Tinubu's third week.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, he made some early moves that one could look at and feel a little bit excited. To say that his posture suggests that he wants good governance. However, there are so many things that you can puncture from that. For example, some of the acts of number 16, I call him, are not unifying in nature. Let me start with the Democracy Day speech. I saw that a lot of people took out the positives, but they didn't look at some of the deep things in that speech, which of course is a reflection of his official act since he assumed the seat. How in the world could you talk about democracy and the fight for democracy in Nigeria without mentioning Atiku Abubakar? Tinubu did not, the president did not mention Atiku Abubakar, and that to me is not reflective of the unity posture.
What did you expect exactly from him? What could he have said? What were you expecting?
He mentioned, because that day was a celebration of the life and the struggles of Bwala. You need to know that the person who stepped down for Bwala in the primaries was Atiku Abubakar. And the struggle continued. So I thought that he should be able to give that extended olive branch. Even Peter Obi, he ought to have mentioned Peter Obi, because Peter Obi, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, represented a move we've never had, the third force. We've never had a third force. There were efforts in the past. And coming at a time when the younger generation said they wanted a new thing, I felt that that was contributory or contributing to democratic ideals. He didn't say anything about the NSAS. The NSAS was a struggle of young people. These are acts and moves that entrench and strengthen democracy. Because what they were doing at the time was they were fighting to call, it was a civil disobedience aimed at calling the government to do what constitutionally they're empowered to do. He didn't do that. So to me, that is not right. And then secondly, if you look at some of the subliminal threats to the judiciary in that speech, to me, I feel it does not promote the integrity of democracy and the rule of law. When you are saying that orders that are tended to subvert democracy will not be tolerated. Order of court, bad or good, stays subsisting until it's overturned. Now, if you are saying that, how do you just suppose that with the many orders that Wike was getting to twist the party, meanwhile he was going about doing everything, what would be his posture or reaction to that kind of order? We look at that as a subliminal threat to the judiciary when you have a pending case before the judiciary. Then he talked about people who don't celebrate something are not entitled to praise. To me, that speech was not a reflection of a unified Nigeria. Now, the other thing is Section 14 of the Constitution. If you look at subsection 3, it talks about the government of the federation must be run in such a way that it will reflect the principles of federal character, so that there is no dominance of a section or a people of a group in the government. It is clear from the party that this is a religiously biased government. So he needed to do more to convince the Nigerian people.
How would you say so? What gives you the impression?
It started with the foundation, which is, of course, the ticket. If you look at the appointment made so far, you can see it evident. And there are more appointments. Probably by tomorrow, he will release the one for his essays, and then he will send the names of his cabinet members now that the National Assembly is constituted for confirmation. You would see that. So an all-inclusive government, if you look at Section 14, is fundamental to steer what they call national loyalty. Loyalty is patriotism. For you to be able to command the loyalty of the people, you must commit acts that will be tended towards.
Has he done anything wrong in terms of the appointment that he's made so far? He's just done quite a handful.
Yes, many more are coming. But what I'm saying is, when you know that fundamentally the constitution of your government is such that it is questioned, as one that is religiously biased.
Why would you say it's religious? What are the evidence?
The evidence is the ticket, which I talked about. And you know, that time I was criticized, but when it came to the election for the post of the Senate president, the same set of people who were criticizing me for that same principle canvassed that, look, we need a religious balance, otherwise it will not protect
you elucidate
the
more
unity.
On where you picked holes on this religious imbalance that you're talking about?
My idea is that if you are going to, you see, it's not everything that is stated in the Constitution. The Constitution has a word and it has a spirit. The spirit of the Constitution reflects the words. That's why we are in court sometimes to get the interpretation of the code as regarding the intention of legislatures. If you look at the Constitution from one right to the end, and then you juxtapose that with convention, you will see that all of the times in Nigeria where we had good governance or we have a unified front were those times where the Constitution and the operation of the government and the agencies were such that they reflected. But sometimes it's even hard to blame him, because he probably picked it from Buhari, because in Buhari's government, it was the same thing. It was a government that was characterized by nepotism. So now, because an order has been established, I am only hoping, because my idea of Tinubu as a person is not somebody that is a religiously biased person. But it doesn't take, he's not the only person that constitutes the government. And that's why there must be a conscious effort on his part to ensure that that is taken care of. Now, look at the fuel subsidy. Of course, all of us agree that fuel subsidy has to go. But we disagree as to the modalities of doing that. Because it's just like taxation. You cannot tax people until you tell them what are the deliverables of the proceeds of the taxes. Now, you came and said subsidy is gone, shook the market, and then plunged the Nigerian people into trouble without providing a broad-based approach to cushioning the effect. It is a transfer from the same party's government to another government. It was legislated. And then I also looked at some of the things that people look at. They say these are sparks of hope and revolution. He is doing a great things. Let me tell you this, Mr. Sheun, and by extension, the Nigerian people. In the first 2 weeks of President Buhari's government in 2015, he did things that were considered more incredible than this one. There is a romance period when you come to power where everything goes in your favor. Buhari asked the service chief all to go to Maiduguri. Within a space of 2 to 3 months, they recovered 11 local government. And because it is understandable, you don't have ministers, so you operate like an emperor. Let there be light, and there is light. The true test of whether you're doing it right or not is when you constitute the government, you have 38 to 40 problems, because the ministers are going to bring the problems of their ministry. And then the minister's problem, the ministry's problem, how you manage these people and how you run the government, then we begin to judge and say you're taking the right moves.
So this Bwala Tinubu's honeymoon period in office, the third week,
right,
how would you describe it generally?
I think it's average.
It's not as fantastic as you thought.
No, it is not. Because, you see, I'm the type of person, maybe because of my discipline as a lawyer, who does not just get excited easily. We always, what we call it, reading or seeing between the lines or below the line. All right? When something new happens, it is like this glass of water and the cup, you put, what do you call this, Andrew liver salt. There are bubbles you see immediately. It is a bubbling period in his administration. People who haven't seen him in government before, now he has come. And because, you see, the previous government performed so poorly that anything you do in this government will be credited. I mean, what does it take for you to call the service chiefs and say that I don't want a lack of cooperation? If you do that, I'm going to take action. It's as simple as that, but it never happened in the past. So when he said it, it is considered as a breakthrough. The first official action, the first one, and the only one that I know so far, official action was the removal of subsidy, which to me, although subsidy has to go, but the modalities, procedure.
He signed the student loan bill into law. One of what he said in the campaigns, that he thinks that people, indigent students, or those who want to go to school, who do not have the money or the wherewithal, should be able to get loan and payable when they get jobs.
There are two things there. Number one, the bill was not initiated in his administration. Already prepared, awaiting signature. Buhari could have signed as well. So you don't take that credit for that. But most importantly, the bill itself and the content of the bill, you juxtapose that with the manifesto of the party. Where are they going to get the money to give the loans? The bankers are not going to give their own money. The government will have to, and there is no well-defined strategy for that loan in that manifesto. Let me even tell you.
But the act now, I mean, which is the law now, has provided that there will be a bank, there will be a board, which we have a former vice chancellor, the NUC, the minister, and all what have you. Then we will have the loan, and the bank can have his offices domiciled in the different states of the federation, and student can get access to these, the procedures for application and all of that. And I think it's an initial 1 billion naira deposit to that bank. These are some of the structures laid out in the act that I saw that was signed.
In 2015, there was Administration of Criminal Justice Act that was signed. How many years since then till today? How many people have been convicted? Having the act signed is not the issue, because there must be a money. The loan there is not to collect prayers. Is it not to collect money? So what they are likely going to do, and that's why when I look at the manifesto and look at realities on ground, there are only two areas where number 16 will get money to execute. Number one, he has to investigate, he has to probe the government he took over from. That was what Buhari did. When he took over in 2015, he probed that government and then recovered some money. He has to probe. So Nigerian people will look at whether or not he has the balls to do that. And then number two, they are going to expand the tax net. You are going to see in the coming days where Nigerian people are going to be made to pay more, because these are the only two areas I feel they can generate money to be able to commence the implementation of some of the things they have in their manifesto. And the idea that you remove fuel subsidy is not Uhuru. It is the administration of the money for the good of the people.
Today, there is an announcement coming from the CBN, reportedly that the CBN are told deposit money banks to freely float the naira against the dollar and other international currency. Some will say it's a gradual process in achieving Bwala Tinubu's aim of singularizing the exchange. How do you see that?
Again, this is also part of what we had in our manifesto, that we are going to remove this idea of this dual exchange rate, right? But we had what we call the procedure leading to that. So what he did today is fine, but it is like a brother, it's like a twin brother of the removal of fuel subsidy without providing the cushion. Has he engaged the stakeholders to know what exactly is the problem? And by that decision, what are the concomitant effects? The good thing is that we are hearing today that after the arrest of Semefele, that the market is beginning to, show some glimpse of light. And this, double rate that Emefiele introduced in Nigeria was meant for corruption and not for the good. So the policy for a free market rate, free market to determine the rate is fine, but whether he has engaged the stakeholder to ensure that we do not have the negative effect is what I don't know. It seems he is more of act before you look at what the problem is.
Maybe when he has his team, a lot of people, now that he has gotten an approval to appoint 20 advisors in the immediate, maybe, and those who say, look, there are some critical appointments that will be very, very fundamental.
Right.
What are your views, especially on the economy and the security?
With respect to the security, intriguing enough, I have heard, I've seen, and in fact, there was a time I even put that on Twitter, that in constituting the security architecture, he's likely to appoint Nuhu Ribadu as the National Security Advisor. Now, I don't have anything against Nuhu Ribadu. He's a fine gentleman that I know. But Nuhu Ribadu is a politician. And I think there was a time I tweeted on my handle, and I said there are certain key roles like Central Bank, NSA, I mentioned them. You do not give it to somebody who has participated in politics, either has run for office or is involved and attached to a political party. National Security Advisor is one of those roles. You see, because your engagement in politics would have led in your meeting with people, and only God knows the commitment you have made to the people. And as a politician, what politicians do is they use their office as a weapon to do what either they have encountered, they have experienced, or they have felt. And that is not where you need a professional. You need somebody who has thorough background in intelligence, but somebody who has not indulged in politics. You don't have to go necessarily to the army. Because, of course, over the time, we have seen how, having the army as NSA hasn't helped matters. And I think majority of Nigerians are of the view that you don't go to the army. But neither should you go to somebody who is involved in politics. You see, I thought, and quite frankly, from the way I'm viewing number 16, he seemed like somebody who wants to do governance, right? But again, he's surrounded by people, and influences might lead him into taking certain decisions that will make him repeat what Buhari did. And it's a matter of time before you see that.
This might be like some kind of compensation.
Which is totally, you see, there are places you can compensate somebody and make a minister of works, minister of whatever. National security advisor, the entire architecture of security falls in your hand. You are the one every day that will break down security briefings to the president and tell him what the situation is on ground. When you put a politician, what do you expect him to do? First of all, he will hunt their political opponent. So that office will now be used as an engine room to prepare for another 2027 rather than using it as a platform to deal with insecurity in Nigeria.
So there are those who have been warning the president to say, look, be careful.
Yeah.
You've had a good start, seemingly. Don't dent it with the kind of, especially in the area of economy, when it needs to jumpstart and securing this country.
Right.
Because there's a response from the party to Amnesty International about the security situation in the country. An appointment in those areas would be one thing that a lot of people will keep their eyes on and say, okay, these are very critical. How impactful would those two areas that some people have highlighted, economy and NSA, be on President Tinubu's government?
That, in fact, is the lifeline and will either be his success or albatross. The economy and security. Now, with respect to the economy, central bank governor, you must not put a politician as a central bank governor. Minister of the economy, you must not put a politician as a minister of the economy. National security advisor. These are the life of that administration. Now, if you get bucked up by pressure from people within or without and make appointment of individuals into these offices who are not thoroughbred and are not professional, what will happen is, and one funny thing about Nigeria is that, like they say, we've seen the movie before. When Buhari started, those sparks, we saw it. When he said, I am for nobody, I am for everybody, I am for this. And when he began at the beginning, it was like that. Now, after 8 years, we have seen how either people around you will influence you negatively. Now, those who are proposing for people like Ribadu are saying that he has had his experience in anti-corruption and the international community. He linked up with them, international community. He does not have corruption charges. And all of that might be fantastic, but one thing is sure. The minute you go into politics, you are compromised, not in terms of corruption, but in terms of the freedom of the thought to do what you need to do without bias.
Mr. Daniel Bwala, a lawyer, and he was a spokesperson to the PDP Presidential Campaign Council in the 2023 election. Thank you so much indeed
Thank you.
for your thought and your time. Awesome.